Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. We'll start with prayers. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauradushe Namah Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Mande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanyam Ishwaram Harihi Om Tatsat. Hare Krishna. So Dandavat pranams to all the devotees. So we were on chapter number 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita is when Duryodhana was speaking diplomatic words to his seniors like Bhishma Pitamaha, Dronacharya, etc. And then he asks Bhishma Pitamaha and Dronacharya to actually give their best in fighting the war so that they can emerge victorious in the battle. And then later on, inspired by Lord Shri Krishna, Arjuna actually asks Krishna to take the chariot in between both the armies, right? Ratam stapayame Achyuta. Oh, Achyuta, take the chariot in between both the armies. I want to see who are all have assembled in the battlefield to fight an undesired war, right? Arjuna did not want to fight the battle, but Duryodhana had not left any choice. Because even when Krishna went as a Duta, they were not willing to give even 5 villages like that. So in this way, the war was inevitable. But as guided by Lord Krishna is there in everyone's heart as Paramatma. So as guided by Lord Shri Krishna as Paramatma, within the heart of Arjuna asked Krishna to take the chariot in between both the armies. And then when he sees who are all present, like Bhishma Pitama is there, Dronacharya is there, Kripacharya is there, all of his kinsmen, relatives are all there. Then he says, I don't want to fight. I would rather live by begging rather than fight all of these relatives of mine. So in this way, Prabhupada actually initially says that it is the compassionate nature of a devotee. But then later on, when his Gandiva bow actually slips from his hand and he says, okay, I will not perform my duty. And then what happens? Prabhupada actually mentions that such kind of compassion is like it's like saving the dress of a drowning man, saving the dress. Not helping the man himself, but just saving his dress, which means what? The qualities of compassion, humility, tolerance, etc., all are subservient to our performance of our dharma. That means dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Whatever is our prescribed duties, whether it is Swadharma or Sanatana Dharma, they have to be performed irrespective of whether we like it or not, irrespective of whether we are going to get pain or pleasure by doing that, but we have to perform our duties like that. So then finally what happens in the second chapter, we saw how Arjuna is giving many reasons to Krishna, saying that I will incur sinful reactions, I will whom will I show off my all my entire kingdom to, even if I win in the battle. So in this way, the leaders of the families will get destroyed, because of which there will be Varna Shankar, unwanted population. All of these reasons Arjuna actually gives to Krishna why he will not fight this war. But Krishna remains silent. Krishna does not speak anything until Arjuna actually surrenders to Krishna. Sishyaste ham shadi mam tvam prapannam. In 2.7, Arjuna actually surrenders to Krishna. And then after that, Krishna starts speaking from verse number 11. Right? Upon seeing the grief-stricken Arjuna who's put down his Gandiva vow and he is very confused, what am I supposed to do? And in that scenario, in text number 11, the first verse is spoken by Krishna. And what does he tell Arjuna? He calls Arjuna a fool. He tells Arjuna, you're speaking words of, learned words, but you're simply a fool, number one, like that. Then he starts talking about the difference between the body and the soul, and then he starts talking about the eternality of the soul and how the soul continues to exist irrespective of anything, right? So never was a time then I did not exist, nor you, nor any of these people, right? All of the soldiers, everybody is eternal, right? Jivera Swarupa He Krishna and Nitya Das. So as eternal servants of the Lord, we continue to exist all the time. But what actually is subject to destruction, that Krishna actually explains in text number 13. Yeah? He says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara prapti dhirastatrana muyati. Right? Just like in the same body, we pass on from being a child to being a youth to being an adult to getting to old age. Similarly, at the time of death, we simply go on to another body, and a sober person is not bewildered by such a change, right? So in that way, when we understand that I am not this body, then a lot of decisions become easy for us, because if we take decisions at a bodily platform, it is bound to be wrong, right? So today we will start with from text number 14, wherein Lord Shri Krishna is going to again explain about in the bodily conception, with always dualities will be there. Sometimes happiness, sometimes misery. But how do we need to tolerate all of this? Why do we need to tolerate happiness? Because happiness also will come and go, just like misery comes and goes. We pray for happiness. We don't pray for misery, but does misery not come? Misery also comes of its own accord. So similarly, just like happiness comes of its misery comes of its own accord. Similarly, without prayers also happiness will come according to our past karma, according to our past desires. Happiness and distress will come and go, right? But in all situations, one should tolerate situations of happiness, one should tolerate situations of distress, and continue to perform one's duties. So that is the lesson that Krishna is giving us in these verses. All right. So let's go ahead. Oh, sorry. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah. So we'll have to start with verse number 14, which is Matra Sprashastu Kaunteya Sitoshna Sukha Dukkadha Agama Paino Anityas Tam Sitikshashva Bharata. So in this, Shobha Mataji, go ahead. Yeah, please read the translation, Mataji. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Srila Prabhupada teaches. Matra Spastastu Kaunteya Sitoshna Sukha Dukkada Agama Apayino Nityaha Tam Sitikshashva Bharata. Translation is Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada teaches. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearances is in due course are like the appearance and disappearances of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perceptions of
Sion of Bharata.
And one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Should I read the purport, Mataji?
Yes.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magha, January, February. It is very cold at that time. But in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconvenience. Similarly, to fly is the religious principle, to fight as the religious principles of the Kshatriyas. And although one has to fight with some friends or relatives, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge. Because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatest from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. Haribol, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah. So here, Prabhupada, in the purport, he actually talks about what is the dharma, right? As a Kshatriya, if one does not fight but rather wants to run away from the battlefield, then he's going to get infamy, right? Why? Because Arjuna is supposed to be a Kshatriya and not just an ordinary Kshatriya, but an illustrious Kshatriya. Why? In his mother's side, there's this, he's addressed as Kaunteya because he's son of Kunti, right? His mother's name is Kunti. So the son of Kunti is Kaunteya, right? From the mother's side also, he has a very nice lineage. And from the father's side, Bharata, right? Bharat. That's how even our Bharata Bhumi is also called Bharat. Because at that time, the forefathers of Arjuna, right? It goes up to King Bharat Maharaj. We know the story of Bharat Maharaj, right? How he became Jada Bharata, how he was the king of the whole world, and then how he perfected his life as a Jada Bharata, who advised Rahuguna like that. We study the details in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in this way, in his father's side also, he has got a great lineage. From the mother's side, he's got a great lineage. So as a Kshatriya, he has to perform his duty. He should not deviate from his duty simply by bodily considerations, right? But thinking himself on the bodily platform, he should not think that I'm not going to fight the war because all my relatives are going to die. I'm not going to enjoy the kingdom if I don't win the war. Even if I win the war, whom will I showcase my glory to, etc., etc. All of these are in bodily consideration, and it does not befit a Kshatriya to be doing all of this. Yeah. Next, let's go to text number 15. Text 15. Yam hina vyatayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram so amritatvaya kalpate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, who's read? Oh, Shobha Mataji, we're reading. You want to read? Yeah, okay. Next, Sindhu Mataji.
Yeah. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation. Quoted by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anyone who is steady in his determinations for the advanced stage of spiritual realization can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashrama institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order sannyasa, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyasa order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having a severe family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path of spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere, even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyasa at the age of 24 under his dependent's young wife as well as old mother had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause, he took sannyasa and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. This is a way of achieving liberation from material bondage. Haribol Dandavat. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, so the Lord himself, he took sannyas, right? The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from Lord Krishna himself. He came simply to propagate Yuga Dharma. But as he was asking people to chant Hare Krishna, nobody was taking him seriously. He was a very great Sanskrit Pandit, but nobody was taking the Lord very seriously. So the Lord, in order to establish Yuga Dharma, in order to ensure that people respect him and take his words seriously, for that reason, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, who came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, took up the sannyasa order at the age of 24 years of age. He left his young wife, he left his old mother, etc. Right? Why? For a higher purpose, we can take. Okay, if our guna and karma is such that we can dedicate our lives and become acharyas and go around the world to preach Krishna consciousness, yes, then one can take sannyas. However, as grihasthas, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do is, we are supposed to just engage in our swadharma, being conscious of Krishna at all times, and that is our Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. Krishna tells Arjuna, think of me and fight the war. Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. That is exactly what we are also doing day in and day out in our life, doing our swadharma. It is a fight against Maya at all times, where we have to take certain decisions, we have to say yes to some things, no to some things, and all these confusions. If we see in the light of the Shastras, then we can take proper decisions, and in this way we'll be able to take the proper decisions that will help us grow in Krishna consciousness, like that. All right, so let's move on to text number 16. Okay, Sindhu Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Pranams Mataji. Na shato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate shatah, ubayora drishtontas anayostatvadarshibhihi. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Purport: there is no endurance of the changing body. That the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by the model medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all the classes of seers of the truth, both impersonalist and personalist. In the Vishnu Purana 2.12.38, it is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self-illuminated spiritual existence. Jyotimshi Vishnu Bhavanani Vishnu. The words existent and non-existent refer only to spirit and matter. That is the version of all the seers of truth. This is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself, the difference between oneself and the Supreme Personality. Difference between oneself and the Supreme Being understood as a relationship between the part and the whole. In the Vedanta Sutras as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. The living entities belong to the superior nature, as it will be revealed in the 7th chapter. Although there is no difference between the energy and the energetic is accepted as the supreme, and the energy or nature is accepted as the subordinate. So the living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the case of the master and the servant, or the teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance, and to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad Gita for the enlightenment of all the living entities for all the time.
Very good. Yeah. So here, what is Prabhupada saying? Prabhupada is talking about the two different concepts, right? Nityo Nityanam. Yesterday also we saw that. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. That means the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities both are eternal. One is the energetic and the other is the energy. So we are all energies of the Lord. We saw how we are Tatastha Shakti of the Lord. And Srimati Radharani is the Ladini Shakti of the Lord. And then we also saw how Maya Devi is the Bahiranga Shakti of the Lord. That means we are all energies of the Lord. According to our propensity to serve the Lord or to exploit the material world, we are differently situated in different energies. Like Tatastha Shakti, we also spoke about how it is like the bank of a river. Sometimes wet, sometimes dry. Similarly, we are also sometimes engaged in the service of the Lord. Sometimes we want to enjoy sense gratification, right? But the more we are tilted towards serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the more we will be situated in the Antaranga potency of the Lord. And how do we do this? By whenever ignorance is removed. How our ignorance will be removed? Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. By serving a spiritual master who is coming in a bona fide Guru Parampara, and then by humbly inquiring from such a spiritual master, one's ignorance becomes removed. Then one understands Sambandha Gyan. What is that? Who am I? Who is the Lord? And what is my relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead? I am part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Mameva Amsha Jiva Loke. Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Right? I am eternal, but I am part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is also eternal and who is the maintainer, and I am being maintained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the knowledge that is taught by Bhagavad Gita. And this is the knowledge that we can acquire only by following a bona fide Guru who is coming in a disciplic succession. All right. So let's move to text number 17. Avinashi tu tadvidi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, Sarva Gopishri Mataji, you want to go read?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Avinasi tu tadviti yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Purport. This verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is consciousness of the pains and pleasures of the body is a part or as a whole. This spreading consciousness limited with one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one's body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptoms of the soul presence is perceived as an individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Shvetashvara Upanishad confirm this. Bala graha sata bhagasya satata kalpitasya cha bhaga jivaka cha vigneka sa chanatyaya kalpate. When the upper part of the hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each such part is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Similarly, the same version is stated, Kesagra Sata Bhagasya Shatamasaga Sadrishatmakaha Jivaha Sukshma Surupaya Sankhyatirate Chit Kanaham. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of the spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body. And the influence of such spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body. And this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul, In the Mundaka Upanishad, the measurement of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Yesho antor atma cheta cha vedi taveyo yasmin pranaga panchadat samvivesha prana chittam sarvam otam prajanam yasmin vishude vibhavati yesha atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana, and is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body or of the embodied living entity. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, it is spiritual influences exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air, encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So the
Hare
constitution
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Mataji, once again, we'll just see this. You can continue reading. We'll just give me 2 minutes. So here, Prabhupada is talking about the explanation of the size of the soul, right? The soul cannot be seen with the help of a microscope. The soul cannot be seen, through a telescope or whatever magnifying instruments that we see. If you have to see the moon or something like that, then they use a microscope and then see that it is bigger than what it already appears. It becomes visible to our eye, but we cannot see the soul even by using all of these technical devices. All of these technological devices was not enough for us to see the soul. Why? Because the soul size is described as 1/10,000th of a tip of the hair, right? So in this way, the soul cannot be seen by our naked eye, or even by using any of these materialistic or our material instruments that we see for that we see other smaller things, right? Even bacteria, virus, etc. We cannot see with our naked eye, but they are all around. That is why it is said that we always commit sinful activities. Sometimes we clap our hands, and then what happens? So many bacteria, so many living entities, small living entities are in between our hands, and they die. Isn't it? In that way, we incur sinful reactions. However, when we work for the satisfaction of the Lord, when we offer everything to the Lord, then every activity we do, for example, if you are clapping our hands and doing Harinam Sankirtan, then that particular activity, even though there might be some bacteria which are unknown, right? Even if some of them die, they also hear the sound of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and they may get better bodies in the future, right? We also just saw in the previous verse of Dehi Nosmin Yata Dehe Kaumanam Yoganam Jara. So, yeah. All right. So, what was he saying? Yeah. So, similarly, for the body, there is no need to fret so much or to worry so much about the body. What we really need to worry about is because we are souls. So, are we working in such a way that is elevating our soul, or is it simply, like Prabhupada gives example of a cage and the bird? Are we simply busy in polishing the cage and cleaning the cage while not giving food to the bird? Then what happens? The bird will die. Although the bird may be in a nice golden cage, if the bird will be dead, then what is the use of the cage? Similarly, the cage is like our material body. The bird is like the soul, right? It's comparative analogy that is given. So if we don't care for our soul, but we simply care for the body, how I can get better clothing, how I can better shelter, how I can get better house, how I can get better car, etc. Right? Then the soul is not getting evolved. At the time of death, we'll be thinking about the car or the house, and then we'll be preparing ourselves for the next body again in the same area. Right? There is a pastime where a person actually dies, and then he's so attached to his property, actually, and he is not able to tell his sons also that this property is there. Right? Because of that, what happens? He dies, and then he becomes a snake in that particular property itself. He's roaming around here and there, right, around the property where he's store where he's kept all the property. And then what happens? It's actually a long pastime, but I'll just tell the crux of it. right? So this, because a person is so much attached to certain things, and because of the lusty attitude, or because of the poisonous mentality that nobody should get, I should only hold everything. Like that, people are reborn either as snakes or as scorpions or as whatever, dogs, etc. Right? If somebody is very, very attached to being in a particular house, and then that particular person may become a dog and be loyal to that particular household. But yet, to become a dog, is that an evolution, or is it we are going down the species, right? We've got this human form of life. We should try to perfect our lives in this human form and not degrade ourselves to that of cats and dogs and snakes and scorpions, right? So this technical knowledge helps us understand, right? Because we are the soul. Like somebody passes away, we say that he has passed away, he's left. Now that means what has left? The soul has left the body, and the soul permeates in the body in the form of consciousness. That is our breathing. We are able to speak, we are able to talk, we are able to walk, we are able to smell, we are able to perceive this material nature only because of the living force that is present in the body. Otherwise, the body, which is jada, cannot understand, cannot speak, cannot work, cannot do anything unless there is this living force. And that living force is the soul. And how is the soul purified? The soul is made like the body is made up of bhumi, rapo, nalo, vayu, right? We talk about earth, water, fire, air, and ether. That is what the body is made up of. So what is the soul? The soul is eternal, right? It's Sat, Chit, and Ananda, right? However, when we are comprised, the soul is within the material body. The soul is between the region of the heart, isn't it? So at that time, because of our polluted, because we polluted our consciousness, which consists of the mind, intelligence, and false ego, right? We want to enjoy sense gratification. We don't want to engage in our dharma. We don't want to perform our duty, and all of this. What happens? Our soul is covered by layers of lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion. And in this way, we are not able to actually experience the happiness or the bliss that is experienced at the soul level. But because we have, like, if there is there is beautiful diamond, right? On top of that, there is so much of kachada, or in the dustbin it is put, and on top so much of kachada is already put. Anybody will be able to see or realize that there is a parasmani, or there is a touchstone, or there is a diamond inside that garbage? No, that is how we have filled our heart with garbage. What is that garbage? Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. So in this way, Prabhupada is explaining how minute the soul is, how eternal the soul is. However, because we are in this bodily conception, we are not able to appreciate the soul, we are not able to understand the soul, we are not able to perform that activity which will give bliss to the soul, which is Jivera Swarbe Krishna and Nitya Das. We are Anandamayo Abhyasat. We are always searching for happiness, but we are searching for happiness in the wrong place. Yeah. So yes, Mataji, Sarvagopishwar Mataji, you can continue with the purport. So the constitution of the atomic soul from there.
The constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures, and it is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of the atomic soul at all pervading Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over the particular body. According to the Mundaka Upanishad, the atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity. And because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientists, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart of, along with the super soul. And thus, all the energies of the bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles which carry the oxygen from the lungs gather energy from the soul. When the soul passes away from this position, the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabha or superior energy. So whether one follows the Vedic knowledge or modern science, one cannot deny the existence of the spirit soul in the body. And the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead himself. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So here, what is stated, initially, Prabhupada started off with the differentiation between the body and the soul. What is the differentiation? The body is always destructible. The soul is eternal. The soul cannot be destroyed. And then just like the body passes from one stage to another within the same body, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. A sober man is not bewildered by such a change. Like so much of knowledge was given by Prabhupada, giving the distinction between the body and the soul. Now, the second half of the paragraph, it's basically talking about how what is the differentiation between the body? What is the differentiation between the soul and the super soul? Right? What is the differentiation between the soul and the super soul? The soul is only knowing what is there in the body, right? Because I am the soul, right? I know what is happening to my body. My hand is paining, my leg is paining, or I'm feeling happy because something good happened, right? I'm able to perceive the feelings of what is happening in my heart, right? But the Lord is situated as Paramatma, as a super soul in everybody's body. That is why the Lord knows. Mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. The Lord knows what are we thinking, what everybody is thinking. The Lord knows what to give everybody. Why? Because it is situated in everybody's heart. That's why the Supreme Lord, the rays of the Lord, it's called Prabha. Prabha or the superior energy, right? Because just like the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules, right? Similarly, we are also fragmental parts of the Lord, just like the example is given of the sun and the sun's rays, right? There are so many small particles, which are molecules, which are called, right? Similarly, we are also small fragmental parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Although the soul is equal to the super soul in quality, in terms of quantity, we are minutesimal. We are what do you call? Infinitesimal. We are minute parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like that. All right. So let's move into text number 18. Okay, who'll read? Okay, Sudha Mataji, go ahead. Antavanta ime deha.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Dandat pranam.
Dandavats Mataji. Yes.
Antavanta ime deha nitya shokta sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmad yudhyasva bharata. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Purport. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation, because the living entity as he is cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved for any length of time or permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the Supreme Light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and not sacrifice the cause of religion for material bodily considerations.
Yes. So the body itself is not important, right? Because when the soul leaves the body, right? Now we actually the relatives and all all of them cry. Why? Because not for the loss of the body, but because of not being able to interact with that particular person, right? Because the soul has left. The body is still there, right? If they were attached to the body, they would say they can still, sit with the body, but they themselves are scared, right? I was hearing one lecture wherein Prabhupada, I think, was saying that, the husband and wife are together, right, for many, many years. Say the husband dies, and the wife is not, the husband and wife stay together only for. But when the husband dies, then the wife cannot even stay with the dead body of the husband alone, right? She calls people. There is the door is kept wide open, right? Because the wife is already scared of staying with the body of the husband. So the attachment is not with the body. The attachment is because the spirit soul is existing in the body, because there is loving reciprocation. The loving reciprocation can be there only when the spirit soul is there in the body, right? Because once the spirit soul leaves the body, then the body starts to it gets decomposed. The body has to be buried, or the body has to be burnt, as the case may be, isn't it? So the body itself is not important. What is important is to perform the duties, to perform the activities that is prescribed, having got one particular form, right? Which is the human form of life, like that. All right, so let's move forward to text number 19. See, all these important information is given by Prabhupada to us, right? Krishna is just telling Arjuna. What is Krishna telling Arjuna? That is, in the translation, is just saying the material body is always destructible. The material body is never eternal. So it is definitely going to die. So what is the use? Why are you feeling lamentation, or why are you lamenting for the body that is anyway destined to die? So what is the purpose, like that? All right, so let's move forward. Text number 19. Okay, Sudha Mataji, you want to continue? Ya enam venti hantaram.
Yes, Mataji. Ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubautau na vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays nor is slain. Purport. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from subsequent verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is ma himsyat sarva bhutani. Never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Right. So it does not mean that we go ahead and simply perform either violence or non-violence, right? We don't perform non-violence thinking that, we should not hurt anybody and then I will always practice non-violence. Or we are not going to say that anyway the body is always destructible. So what is the harm in actually going ahead and causing violence, right? Or causing harm to the body, right? Because the body is anyway going to die. So no, in both the cases we'll be wrong. Why? Because see, without for sense gratification, right? If you're saying the body is anyway destructible, why not cut cows and goats and have them and enjoy our senses? No, it is not allowed. Why? Because it's neither violence is good nor non-violence is good. Everything has to be dovetailed in the service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. That is the thumb rule, right? We are not going to, that's why Prabhupada said, we are not vegetarians, right? There's no pride in being vegetarians. Even the herbivorous animals are vegetarians. There is no pride in being vegetarians. But we are Krishnatarians because we follow the instructions of Krishna. Because Krishna has told Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. That is why we eat Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. And that to offer offering to the Lord, right? So we don't have any pride that we are vegetarians, right? It is not about being vegetarians or not. It's not about being whether violent or non-violent. Does not matter, right? Mahatma Gandhi, Prabhupada tells in Ishopanishad and also in Prabhupada Lilamrita that Prabhupada wrote so many letters to Mahatma Gandhi. He was a very religious man. He was studying the Bhagavad Gita, but because he was not attached to any particular parampara, because he had not get the knowledge in a proper bona fide parampara, he practiced non-violence, and then he had to die an inglorious death. That's what Prabhupada says in Prabhupada Lilamrita. He had to die an inglorious death. Although he was very sattvic, he was studying Bhagavad Gita. He was living in a very simplistic way, simple living and high thinking, whatever it may be. But all of that in a material platform is just not sufficient to attain spiritual consciousness. We have to surrender to a spiritual master. Right? Prabhupada wrote so many letters, but unfortunately, Mahatma Gandhi could not even read those letters or have a meeting or could not be encouraged by Srila Prabhupada, right? So in that way, right, we don't practice violence, we don't practice non-violence, we don't want to concoct anything. We simply want to follow the instructions of our spiritual master. That's the crux of the purport by Prabhupada. Now let's go ahead, text number 20, where Krishna is again going to go on now with further verses describing the nature of the soul. Yeah. Now Kishori Mataji, go ahead. Text number 20.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam. Yes.
Thank you, Mataji.
Na
Mataji, can
jayate
you scroll up? Okay. Can you scroll
nayam
up, please?
kavita vanabhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano nahanyate anyamane sharire. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Mataji. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. For the soul, there is neither birth or not death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes, little the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes the birth from the wombs of the mother's body, remains for sometimes grows, produces some of effects gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. It is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth; it's there, and the soul does not die. Anything which the birth also has death, and because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc. Of the soul, and of the soul. Under the impression of body, we seek the history of birth, etc. of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man. Therefore, he feels himself to be in the same spirit as is in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproduct of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots or nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Mataji, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So here we already studied this, right? As part of the previous verse. Dehinosmi yata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhirastatrana muyati. Right? Dehinosmi yata dehe. So that is the nature of the body. The body is born, the body grows, as a child, as a toddler, as a teenager, as an adult, in old age, and then one dwindles and then the body dies. Right? This is typical of the body, that the body will always have to undergo changes. But what is typical about the soul? The soul does not, in any respect of time, the soul does not change. The soul is eternal. The soul is ever existing, right? So in this way, Prabhupada is giving the example of the body and the soul again, right? So, okay, the purport continues. Somebody, Navkishori Mataji, you want to read again? Let's complete the purport. Yes, go ahead. In the Katha Upanishad 1.2.18, you also find a similar passage which reads, Najayate mriyate va vipaschin nayam kutaschin babhuva kaschet ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse, there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge, right? There we studied Najayate mreteva kadachin. Here we read Najayate mreteva vipaschit. That means one who is learned or one who has proper knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to the clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there. And we are convinced, therefore, that it is daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether a man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. The consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge. It consists of knowledge of both the past, the present, and the future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. So here again, there is a distinction between the soul and the super soul. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul called as the Anu Atma and the super soul called as the Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 1.2.20 in this way. Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya janto nito guhayam tamakratu pashyati vita shoko dhathu prasadan mahimanam atmanaha. Both the soul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being, and only one has become free from all material desires, as well as lamentations, can by the grace of the Supreme understand the glory of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, right? So right now we are not in knowledge. Why? Because we are confused. We think we are the body, whatever our relationships of this body are mine. I have to work for the pleasure of my body, etc., etc. So in that way, we are bewildered, right? And then we don't even first and foremost, we don't understand we are the soul at all, right? Even if we understand the soul, then the next level is to distinguish between the soul and the super soul, namely the Paramatma and the Jivatma. Prabhupada gives a very beautiful example here of two birds sitting in the tree. One bird is simply eating the fruits, right? And looking here and there, what activity can be done. The other bird is simply being a witness, not doing any activity, but just looking for this bird to turn back so that the guidance can be imparted to the other bird, right? The bird which is engaged continuously in activities of sense gratification is a Jivatma, and the bird which is just waiting for the other bird to look back so that it can provide guidance is actually the super soul or the Paramatma. And Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also. Right? Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. The first level is to understand like the sun's effulgence. Right? The sun god is there and he is there in his planet. And the sun's effulgence is the sun rays. Right? So the Brahman is like the sun rays of the Lord. The Paramatma is like, there is this sun planet inside which there is Bhagavan, who is the sun god himself. So that is the understanding of the three levels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead being Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So with this we'll end today. Tomorrow we will continue with text number 21. Granthra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So let's see who all we have today. Today was, in 10 minutes notice you all have joined. So my thank you very much. Actually, I thought we may have to go out. So that's the reason I had actually told that there will not be class. But now we'll have class tomorrow also. Saturday, because I think Guru Maharaj is going to be here till the first week of February. So we'll have program on Saturday, Sunday. So that's when I mostly will be going. So we'll have class tomorrow also. Tomorrow is Friday, right? No, tomorrow is Thursday. Yeah. So Thursday, Friday, we will have our session as normal, and if possible, we'll also have it on Saturday. Yeah. Today is Wednesday, correct. So like that we will do. So thank you all very much. Let's see who all are there. Rajneesh Prabhu is there. Shobha Mataji, Nilanjani Mataji, Sindhu Mataji, Sarva Gopeshwari Mataji, Karpagavali Mataji, Hare Krishna. Navakishori Mataji is there. Sudha Mataji is there. Okay, thank you very much. Panchakalpatrobhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai. So thank you all for joining in for a short notice. And so we will tomorrow onwards we will continue with Nectar of Instructions. Today I thought since we had the time we'll just do Bhagavad Gita. So we'll do Harinam Sankirtan and then we'll end our session in like 5 minutes. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Vishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Asatyari Shotarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Jaya Balagopal Balagopal Bala Gopal, Bala Gopal, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Gurudev, Gurudev, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. राम संकीर्तन की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद श्रील गुरुदेव की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय. All glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna, all glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna, all glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So everyone can mute themselves now. In case anyone has any queries or wants to share anything, you may do so now. Otherwise, we can end the session. Anything from anyone? All right. So thank you very much. Meet you all tomorrow morning 5 a.m. for Brahma Muhurta chanting session, and then we'll meet at 11:30.